Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first IGDA session of the semester. My name is Vincent. I'm one of the executives of the club. And today, for our session, I would have brought with us today one of the developers at Unity, who's a Unity developer advocate. His name is Russell. He and I have had some history together. We studied together when we were at Ontario Tech University, and he has had quite the career under his belt. When it comes to Unity development. He's done projects in Unity VR, basically Unity game design, and now he's up to Unity. And in today's session, he's going to teach us like basically a more elaborate discussion of his game dev journey from his small beginnings all the way up to where he is now at Unity Technologies. So without further ado, Russell, the floor is all yours.
Hey everybody, thanks Vincent for the intro. Great to be here. Part of my role is to do outreach similar to this, and I'm always ready and happy to, share more about what I do at Unity and how I got there. And so that's the topic of today, how I got to Unity. So my name is Russell, and I am currently at Unity as a developer advocate. You can reach me on my email or my Twitter, and you can also reach out and connect on LinkedIn. So let's get started. So, as Vincent mentioned, we both had a common undergrad at the Ontario Tech. I graduated in game development and entrepreneurship, and I also took a minor in marketing during my university time. And this is very relevant because of what I do today. I've been playing Escape from Tarkov and Project Zomboid, and I'm looking forward to Elden Ring and Dying Light 2, both of which should launch in February, but we'll see. So I just have a short sizzle reel here that I will talk over since the audio doesn't want to cooperate. So you know Unity mostly as a game engine for mobile games, but there's also a lot of console and PC development that happens using Unity. And these are some of the games that are made with Unity. And typically, the nice thing about Unity is that it allows a lot of different skill levels to onboard quickly. There's not like a huge learning curve before you can get started with simple projects and then build your way up to some of these complex, indie to enterprise level projects, essentially. And the nice thing also is that with like the variety of plugins, you can get pretty custom with what you need in game. Like Genshin Impact, Fall Guys, Among Us, like they all use Unity in some aspect or another. Like Genshin is totally made with Unity, which is a lot of people don't know. Cool. So let's move on. So what do I currently do at Unity? I am a developer advocate, which falls under the umbrella of technical marketing. And so my background being in game development puts me in the right space because I know the issues that happen when you're developing with Unity. And so my role is to push those issues internally to the right people, like in the engineering teams, in the content marketing teams, in the documentation teams, and make sure that developers are heard, right? That it's not just like forums and Reddit posts, but an internal employee that puts the interest in user focus towards the problems. So I create demos based on the new features that our engineering teams come up with, and I showcase them. So I do like workshops and presentations and explain to developers from all skill levels about what the feature is and how to use it. So I would give talks at GDC. So in March, I'll be going to GDC if Omicron doesn't end everything. And Unity, like the Unite talks, PAX, Pocket Gamer. So these would be where I would be like at the booth or giving a demo or a talk. And also, I'm here to interact and build relationships with all levels of developers. So from you guys as students who might not have the most experience in Unity yet, and you're just starting on your journey, to the indies to mid market, and then like double A, single A, and then finally enterprise. So like part of my role at Unity is I reach out and I have conversations with the development teams at Ubisoft or the bigger enterprise level companies, and I also have time to discuss low lying problems that you might not face unless you're doing it in a one-man team or three-man team, in your garage somewhere. So my umbrella is to cover all of these, different levels of interactions. So here's how I got started. So this screenshot is from the first game that I ever made in Unity. Sorry, it wasn't even Unity. It was in like command line. It was the first, graphical game that we had made in my first year in university, and it was a very simple like puzzle game where you would take the bridge over here on the right and you would move it here to place it to get to this endpoint. And then the next year, we started to get a little bit more in depth to 3D graphics. And this is a game called Splinter Chimp. And so you can start to see the like progression of detail and fidelity. And in my third year, we started with Spellbound Showdown, a project that, Vincent and I were on. And so this was interesting because it used the um, Mio armband. And this is where I started getting into AR in that sense, where I wanted to use a controller that wasn't just a joystick or a keyboard and mouse. And so I made the Mio armband into the controller. So you would use your arm, right, like here, and depending on the different like muscle movements that you made, like clenching your fist or doing the Spider-Man pose or pointing, you would have different reactions that would happen in the game. So like different spells you could cast, and it was split screen 1v1, and both players would have each a Mio, and you would just have your corresponding half of the screen. And I use the gyroscopes in the Mio to control the movement. So when you rotate your wrist, your character will move left to right, and when you tilted your arm forward or back, that's how you moved forward and back in the game. And so in my fourth year, we got into more complicated um, projects. So this one was using an eye tracker, the Tobii eye tracker, and I made a virtual museum with my team. And the whole goal was for people that, again, this is kind of in the external AR kind of space, XR, they call it now, where you don't have to use a controller at all. You just have to look at different areas of the screen. And the eye tracker that's calibrated to you will move your avatar in the Unity space. And so the whole thing was that we would try to make this for the target audience of people who might have issues with traditional controllers, and so like people who might be immobile as well. And so that led to my graduation in the industry. I had a very early internship at a VR company called NeuroFit, and it is a brain rehabilitation application. It started on the Oculus Go, which is the first one before the Quest that was freestanding VR, and then eventually we ported to the Quest. And so the whole idea is that, and so this is in Unity, is that we would have these games that were backed by medical research for optimizing people's short-term memory, long-term memory, and allowing them to basically rehab their brain injuries in a private, comfortable location. So you wouldn't have to go to the, like physician or the physiotherapist's office. You could do this at home and just submit your results. And that led me to another internship at a company called 20BN, which has now been bought over by Qualcomm. And they were also using Unity, but with a TensorFlow Python backend that was essentially using neural nets to have this avatar on screen that you see, her name was Millie, interact with you in an organic way. So she would be in a kiosk in like a mall or a store, and you could ask her questions and, like do gestures, and she would recognize that you were waving at her or dancing and be able to parse the information that you were saying to her. And so my role in that company was like a very junior Unity developer. So I would do like the animations for Millie. I would do the texturing for like different outfits. Like I did like a good life shirt and the different backgrounds, and also working on the Unity messaging system between how the Python backend would communicate. Like if Python said Millie should wave, then I have to on the Unity end receive that message and then play the animation. And that led me from those internships into my first like full-time developer role, which was on a game called Flow Weaver that released last March. So that was my first industry credit. And as a full-time VR developer, this was where I got to from those screenshots that you saw at the beginning. So it was a seated experience, like a puzzle room, and you would interact with the environment around you to create changes in other levels. And so you would have this mechanic of like changing the scene. And so we had a lot of really beautiful levels. And this was on the Quest, and I still think it's one of the best looking Quest VR games. So that leads me to my time at Unity. And so at Unity, we believe that the world is a better place with more creators in it. And we truly stand by this because the more people that make cool things, the more engaging and the more amazing experiences happen, right? And these are some of the values that at Unity, I truly do see because this is I would say like the biggest company I've worked at. We have like 45 offices around the world, thousands of people in all sorts of roles. And I have seen these values across the organization, which is really special. Like, not every company really follows their mission statement, and Unity does. And so you can see it because one of them is putting users first. And so this can mean the people that use Unity, this can mean the people that internally, rely on your team. So if you were an HR person, your users would be the other employees at Unity. Best ideas win. So at Unity, we don't just assume that because somebody is more senior that they have the best idea. Um, you, even from another team or organization, have the opportunity to suggest and push for a change that you think is better. And the leadership does listen. Like even up to the C executive level, people will give you the opportunity to say your piece, which is amazing. In it together. So our teams don't just, silo and then not care about what each other team in the organization is doing. There's a lot of driving for alignment where people put together and put aside, some of the differences in order to make the best product possible. And one of the last values is go bold. So Unity started a long time ago as just a way for these developers to share the opportunity to make games without having to do all of the initial setup and tooling and graphical UI design that was necessary in order to make that game. And so even now today, Unity is across the world in so many different areas. It's not just gaming anymore. There's a slide about that later, but we have so much work in like the architectural space, in product design, in CAD work, and it's actually pretty incredible how what started as a game engine is now so ubiquitous in so many industries, and I'll talk about that in a bit. And so those values are great, but it's about how we are able to live them in our space. And so we start with empathy, because if we don't um, care for one another in your team or in your organization, it's hard to connect to those people and understand where they're coming from. And then respect. So once you empathize with somebody, you give them the opportunity to be respected for what they have to say. And lastly, opportunity. So we give everybody the chance to grow and to change your mind about something. A lot of people at Unity stay there for a long time because even if they're not interested in what they were initially hired for anymore, they are valued because they can just move. Like if I decided that I didn't want to be a developer advocate anymore, I wanted to be like an engine specific programmer, my manager would put me in touch with the right people and give me the chance to do that instead of just saying like, okay, well, thanks. Here's your your notice. You gotta go, which is not how it works at Unity. So this picture is of the Unity office in Montreal. And I was able to go there in December before Omicron for a short visit, and I also had some like stuff to talk to the people there about, and I wanted to check out the city. So here's the photo of the like nice espresso lounge that they have with all the teas and like the grinders and everything. These are just some photos of the office. It's this old brick building. Ubisoft is also on the top floor, I believe. And like every desk is a standing desk. Every desk has double monitors. Yeah, it's kind of quite a trip. And of course, every desk has sriracha, as you can see. I just want to make sure I have the next slides. So yeah, any questions up to this point before we go to the full Q&A at the end?
Okay. I asked a few questions up in the Q&A channel. It's two channels above speaker stage,
Yep, I'll take a quick look.
and I think there a few other people CT also, or not sure if that's a question. Never mind.
So my role doesn't require that, but if I did do outreach on those forums, then it's not like not allowed. Like it's however I see, you know, fit to do my outreach is how it should like it's how it's encouraged. There's no hard rule on like you can't engage with people on Reddit or you can't engage with people on the forums, but we do have dedicated like forum support teams that answer people's inquiries, and a lot of the developers engineering developers actually are the ones to answer the questions because they're the ones that are building the features as
Mhm.
well. So there's like a whole support team that is
Russ, do you personally do you go on Unity Discord?
I am on the Unity Discord. Yeah,
Can I ask which channels do you frequent the most, and do you answer people's questions do you what do you usually do? Are you more chill? Are you professional?
I
Because it is kind of your job, right?
yeah. So it's a very interesting question because there's a couple ways that you can approach it. I always believe in honesty. So if I'm helping somebody with something, yeah, it's in an informal like setting, like Discord right now is informal, but I think there's a shift towards it becoming a more professional tool as well. Like a lot of projects are just starting in Discord and then growing into actual companies. So on the actual Unity Discord, I'm always looking at like game jam stuff. Like people are asking questions about how to do certain things for game jam. I'm always looking at, like Unity talk, game
Beginner
design.
code, maybe
Yeah, for scripting. So again, coming from a game development background, my primary role throughout university was as a programmer, as a co-programmer or art in the sense of like technical, like integrating the artist's work or like sound. So I am usually looking at those threads, like looking at those channels and
okay.
addressable. So a lot of the stuff that I work with are back-end services. So my team is focused on like monetization, ads, remote config, cloud code, cloud save, and those are more um, once you have a game, these are the services that you would want to use to improve your project, like analytics, like getting more
Mhm.
feedback on
Now,
people who are playing the game.
my next question is a bit of a follow up to that, because I mean, at least I also noticed on the Discord that you guys have started like Twitch streaming, at least on the professional end. Like, you guys on the Discord server, you have a whole, you have a speaker stage now. I don't even know how you guys did that. I'll probably figure once I figure it out. I'll probably try to do something similar in IGDA myself here. But anyway, you guys like have like the Twitch streams for like the Lego competition. You had like the VFX stream a few months back, etc. Do you do you have anything to do with that? Do you go on Twitch onto any of these dev streams and like help people out, like comment or like stuff like that? And again, is that to lead that back? Is that encouraged by is that encouraged um, with your position to do those things?
Right. So I do have some exposure to the Unity Twitch channel in the sense that if I would like to suggest content, I could host it on the channel, and that would be something that, would help increase the outreach of whatever topic I was trying to talk about or share.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not directly under my team's responsibility. That's on the like social media team and
Mm-hmm.
the we have like a official community ambassador as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So she handles a lot of those
So
streaming
so
accounts.
you're not a community, like you're also kind of a community ambassador, no?
Yeah, so I would be kind of like
Technical
the
ambassador?
technical outreach in that sense,
Okay.
right? Like
Okay.
like the social media would be increasing awareness of Unity as a whole, like other projects, other games that use Unity. So typically, like a developer that uses Unity will come on and they'll talk about some of the stuff that they did using Unity to make the game look like this, or some of the features that they wanted to highlight that Unity helped them implement. For example, like Among Us.
Mm-hmm.
Among Us uses Unity's relay and lobby system.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you host a game, you're actually using Unity's underlying technology to run those lobbies, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so something
Um,
like that would be
last thing here. Do you personally like watch any of these to get better? And like, do you feel like that it helps you if you do?
yeah. So
Like
great
let's say like
question.
Lana Lux or something, you know.
Yeah. So at Unity, we have a lot of internal growth. Like you're expected to, continually be better at what you do, and also just to learn more about the company and learn more about the editor and be more technology, especially my role, which is technical. And so part of the things that I do is, catching up with new releases, like documentation wise, watching these videos in the Twitch streams on new developers that do something that might be related to backend. For example, there's a NBA Clash game that uses a lot of the UGS stuff and also addressables, and those are relevant to my role. So I watch those videos, and I can send a link later about how that team at Nifty implemented those tech. Because a lot of the times, Unity actually provides the tools, but then the developers use them in ways that we don't fully
Well,
expect.
yeah, yeah, and sometimes you guys provide tools, and then people start using them, and then they're like, "Hey, we need this feature, or we need this to be updated, or hey, I found a bug with this, right?" Like, and yeah, and then that's that goes into a bit of you, right? Because it's like you're the one who's kind of supposed to be telling Unity about that. If you see it, like, let's say on Discord or something.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, there's no like hard and fast rule that I can only accept feedback from these areas. Like if I see, with my relationships with developers that they encounter some problems, I can refer them to the right teams. I can refer them to the correct solutions, and I can internally also like literally just ping the person that's like in charge of the universal render pipeline and be like, "Hey, can you look into this ticket? Or can you?" Yeah, it's actually really very very crazy how flat the organization is. Like, there's no issues if I need to talk to the person who like is in charge of dots or something, like another internal team, or the person that does the cinemachine or animation engine, and I'm like, hey, like I noticed a bug, and a lot of the times those bugs have already been like ticketed and fixed, but they're just waiting to be deployed.
Okay.
I have a question regarding what a developer advocate does.
Yeah.
Not so much like day to day, but like you say you do outreach to developers. What do you do for the
Mhm.
developers?
This will also
The same question,
this will
yes.
also fill in Yash's question. What does a developer advocate do? Like a summary.
Sorry, I came in late from work, so I was just curious.
It's no
Yeah,
problem.
no
No problem.
worries. So I had not heard about developer advocacy until I was reached out to on LinkedIn. Actually, I was already in a VR development role, and so developer advocates, we before pandemic would visit studios and ask them and like sit down and talk to the dev teams about issues that they were having or things that they wanted to see in Unity. Then we would take that feedback internally, organize solutions and return that information to those studios. Now, of
Um,
course, with COVID, we do virtual outreach. So, like, um, for example, at the end of the month, I'm hosting a workshop on remote config, which is essentially a service that allows you to change settings and variables in your game without having to deploy a patch. So like changes like live ops style changes to your game, right? And so what will happen is I will do that talk to like 100, 200 developers of various sizes and various projects, and then I'll get questions about remote config. And that's how I do my developer outreach. Like I talk to these people, I understand the issues that they're facing or what's not clear with some bugs or you know use cases that we have not even thought about that they want to use, and then I push that internally. And this role of developer advocacy is becoming more and more popular because typically you have your like marketing teams that are really good about getting people to look at your project, getting people to understand it. But you then have like the developers, which are very good at the technical part of it, that understand how to use the SDK, how to code the feature, and and utilize it. And then my role sits in the middle where we have to be able to talk about the use cases and utility, and also show how to do those things. And so, this role is growing at like Google, is growing at Facebook, is growing, well, Meta is growing at all of the, Amazon. Like I keep getting outreach from my LinkedIn about other companies trying to hire me because developer advocacy is such a important part. Like you need to be able to understand the problems that your developers face so that you can fix them in your product. Does that answer your question?
um,
Yeah, I think it does.
Mm. Okay, for the sake of time, we'll have to keep progressing with the presentation. We will have another Q&A session once Russell is done because there's still plenty of slides left to go. Whoever still has questions, please write them down in Q&A, and please leave the mics off until we go to the next the next part of session of Q&A. So please, Russell, continue.
Yep, thanks. So yeah, great question, everybody. So just before I leave the slides about the Montreal office, there's like catered breakfast, catered lunch. There's snacks every day. It's like all kinds of different drinks in the fridge. It was really my first experience with this kind of company. So I just went ham. Like it was a good time. And there is potential for a Toronto office. It's not guaranteed yet, but there is definitely like interest because we have since the pandemic hired a lot of people in Toronto. Unit off like Montreal is still the biggest office in Canada, of course. We also have an office in BC, in Port Coquitlam, but Montreal by far has the most employees. And so I mentioned this earlier, but Unity has been focused with mobile game development, and you can see 71% of the top 1,000 mobile games are made with Unity. Games like Among Us and just more. And I also talked about how no longer is it just a game engine. companies like Disney and Pixar, they're using Unity to do like quick prototype animations. We have visualizations of storefronts for, retail, fashion design. Of course, the medical field is becoming more and more XR, VR heavy. And so we provide a platform for that as well. And I know for car companies, even before I was hired at Unity, I had a lot of outreach about becoming a Unity developer for dashboards, like heads up displays, in car entertainment systems, and those are also using Unity. So here are some of my tips that I had from my time before Unity, right? Like, I would suggest building a portfolio and website as soon as possible if you don't already have one. Build strong friendships. The industry is very small. I know people who work at Ubisoft now who went to school with me, and that's really important if you want to have, somebody refer you or ask them what it's like to work at a certain company. And believe me, the industry is very small. So, do your best to be authentic to people and like be helpful because people remember that. Like I know people who remembered something that I said to them like in my second year and I don't even remember what I told them, but the fact is that people do remember the good things that you do for them. So always stay creative. It's very easy to once you get into your industry job or once you kind of leave university to like turn away from being creative, but that's the only way that you can keep growing as a developer. And ABL, like always be learning. Even at my role at Unity, what we do are some things called project reviews. And essentially, these are companies that pay Unity to have a engineer go over their project and dig deep into like optimization or work workflow improvements, code that needs to be rewritten or refactored. And so at Unity, I have the opportunity to sit in on those project reviews and just learn, like just absorb knowledge from people who are far more like experienced with Unity. And I always learn something new, whether it's like RAM texture atlasing, like various console quirks, like Switch versus PlayStation versus Xbox versus VR. So, there are these resources and you should always be trying to improve your skills because if you don't, there's always going to be somebody that takes the time to do it. Don't be discouraged by rejection. I was applying to every possible place for, like, I showed you all of my success stories, but I had, 10 times more, like, sorry, we need a more senior person, or your resume doesn't fit our role. And yes, that, sometimes sucks, but you're always going to remember the places that accept you first anyway. So while you're looking for a job, just apply to anything. Apply and apply. Let the job tell you no, right? Don't like stare at a job description and then say, "Oh, I don't have enough years," or "I don't have this that's on it." Just apply. Like a lot of times you learn on the job. And I can promise you that for a lot of my initial like roles and internships, most of the stuff I needed to learn, I had to learn at the job. Follow your passion, not the paycheck. It's very, very easy in our industry to get burnt out. You might be paid more, but hate what you do. And that means that eventually you just don't want to do it anymore. So if you put your passion first of what you actually want to do, get good enough at it, and people will pay you the money that you're looking for to do it. And putting yourself first. Having a strong mental resilience is very important, and just take care of yourself. Like do the things that you need to do to put yourself in the right space to do work. Like yeah, you can pull all-nighters and do your job, but at the end of the day, it's only going to hurt you versus help you. So some of the resources that I would suggest if you're trying to learn more about Unity, is that we have a whole website called uni.com/learn, and there's all sorts of different like tutorials, guided, breakdowns of certain features in the UI. And so that website has been super useful even for me. If I need to go back and review a part of the engine that I'm not sure of, I can go back and check, and it's all free. Unity student, if you're a post-secondary student, you have free access to the Unity Pro. So if you can confirm your eligibility at that website, Unity student. Also, the documentation. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten questions about stuff that the answer is literally like in the documentation. So if you are ever unsure about something, just look up the class name. 9 times out of 10, that documentation covers all the functionality, all of the parameters, where that parameter gets fed to, what the function does, and other classes that rely on that function. And lastly, at careers.unity.com, you can see all the hiring that we're doing across from full-time to internship to student internships, which I have some slides on as well. And if you reach out, if you're really interested in working at Unity with me, I can give you a personal link that will refer you for the job. So, student life at Unity. So, as I talked about before, Unity embraces innovation, creativity, and inclusion. We truly see students as the lifeblood of growth. There's so many offices around the world, and with the pandemic now, essentially, we're hiring remotely in a lot of these places. So if ever you eventually want to move out of Toronto or you want to go to Montreal, that can be done. Like, for example, now that I'm working fully remote, if I needed to, when I fly to San Francisco, I can work from the office there. Or if I go to, like South Korea, I can work from the office there. And that's not something that you can do in a lot of companies. So what is it like at the student experience internships at Unity? So it is challenging. You'll be working on real products, but you'll be getting significant experience. Like the things that you do will actually have weight and impact. And a lot of internships, sometimes you just go there and you're not really contributing to the project. You're just like there. But at Unity, you'll be really working and making an impact. They have, at the Montreal office, they have something called Beer Critique, which is on Wednesdays. Work just ends early and people like hang out. Obviously, with Omicron, the office is shut down, but they still do like online like D&D sessions. They still do like the Airbnb virtual events. So like an escape room, but actually it's escaping like a Zoom call, right? Like fun things like that. And so Unity really values the um, personal experience versus like you're just a gear. You're not like you're a valued member of the team. And like I mentioned before, you're never like told you can't talk to people. Like there's no, if you have something that you want to talk about, you can meet mentors and leaders within the organization that will take the time to like explain things to you or point you to the right resources that you're looking for. And of course, Unity encourages learning. Like we internally push for workshops that help you be a better public speaker or be a better leader, be a better team member. And so these are all those things that we offer internally. So why does Unity hire students? Because like I said, the student internships are the future of Unity. People who are in school like, yourselves today have impact to offer. And that's what we want at Unity. We want to find and grow new talent. Um, we want to gain fresh perspective and ideas, which ties into our best ideas win value. And we want to develop our teams at all levels. There's no like hard and fast rule that like you can't join this team. You just have to, apply and go through the technical test. And if you're good enough, you'll be in. And we want to have diversity in our teams. Inclusion is very important to us at Unity. We don't want to just have the same demographic. It's important for us that we hire diversity for the best representation across all our developing studios and also our teams. So Esteban is actually a member of my developer advocacy team, and he was a intern at Unity. So he had a computer engineering, computer science background, and he was scripting in Lua for configuration files and gameplay code. He had built an internal tool to transfer color files to another mockup, and he also worked on the successor to Collaborate, which was basically a visual diff tool. So Unity would be able to visually show you the file changes and how to better, commit and push those changes. And he's now a developer advocate with a specialization in netcode, relay, and lobby. And so he was able to apply to the opening on my team and move over from what he was doing before, which was working on, like I said, that visual source control. So it just goes to show you that no matter where you are in Unity, if you want to move to a different team, it's not like they don't care. They will give you the opportunity to do what you want because they recognize that it's about the passion and not, burning out on something that you no longer are interested in. So what happens for internships at Unity? There's ongoing learning and training programs. So when you join as an intern, it's not just you do this job and you don't improve your other skills. There's always these ongoing guidance and knowledge and skill training. Obviously, you develop your career because you're working in an industry, with live impact and live changes. You get to network. Again, I talked about how important building a strong bond and friendship is in this industry. And and so by learning and networking with, other people who are in the same kind of stage of life, you get to in the future potentially help them. Like for example, like I refer Vincent all the time to jobs that I think he might be good at, and I put him on top of the list for resumes for that. Or mentoring, like helping other people who are earlier in their journeys, because I didn't get to where I was by myself, right? Like it's a combination of people who are more senior that take the time to teach you. And we have these employee resource groups, which are essentially internal support groups for whatever issues that you might be facing, or if you want to join a specific group for ethnicity, those exist. So that's just one of the ways that Unity supports internal inclusion. So what Unity looks for? So a lot of the times people are like, well, how do I know that this company cares and wants to hire me? Like, what do they want from me, right? Like the job description is so either too vague or too specific. So what Unity looks for is user first orientation. So is the project that you're doing or the thing that you're working on truly demonstrating that you care about your users, right? Like whether it's from a UI standpoint, from a code standpoint, game standpoint, art standpoint. Commitment to excellence and integrity. So, of course, we're always trying to be better. Intellectual curiosity. So, this ties into what I was saying about ABL, like always be learning because you never know. Like, I never imagined that I would do technical marketing. I just thought marketing would be a useful minor because I didn't want to do like, you know, some other random course that wouldn't affect my future. And so I didn't expect that marketing would be such a big part of my career now. And the fact that I was, curious enough in third year to pick those classes and pick that minor helped me get to where I am today. Active listening. So one of the first things you learn at the Unity like leadership and onboarding is how to be an active listener. So it's very easy to just like close your mind and kind of let information flow through it. But active listening is truly like putting effort towards understanding what somebody's saying to you and seeing where they're coming from. And that's how you build effective communication. Having an analytical mindset, so being able to break down complex ideas into simple ones and explain that. Having big ideas and problem solving. So not just like throwing out negatives like, oh, this doesn't work because of this, or this doesn't work. Like, this doesn't work, but here's a solution. This is what I think about this, and I think it can be improved like this. So it's not just, coming at a project or problem from one approach. It's about being flexible in your thinking, being creative, and being entrepreneurial. So entrepreneurial, of course, we throw that word around a lot, but to me, it's it's having a balance of independence and also being able to work with a group, like pushing for something that you think is the right idea, but being able to say, oh, okay, actually, my team members are suggesting that it's not because of these reasons, and being able to accept that, but still always trying to improve the project that you're working on. And of course, being a team player, there's no like, nothing at Unity is done by one person. The teams that create, the updates that you see and the project that you see, and I sit in on those Slack channels. There's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of, trying to understand what's going on. And obviously, we all know the memes like about teamwork, but it's different in the industry. Like, at school, yeah, it's about grades, but in the industry, it's literally like, is this project going to make a big impact or just fail miserably? So the stakes are completely different. And people who, don't contribute, basically they don't last long in the industry. And I can promise you that one of the things that you want to work on is your teamwork as a student. So how can you apply? Uni.com/students, you can apply there. And for the deadlines, usually for the summer, it's the previous year. So for example, if you want to apply for 2023 summer, you would apply like November, and then you would be considered for the following year.
So are you saying it's too late for applications for this summer?
For this summer, I believe it is too late, but it depends on what's going on with um, Omicron and stuff. Like, they might just accept more applications for this time. As far as I know, I recommended people last November, and the applications are still being reviewed. So I think if you really were interested in this summer, that is a possibility for sure. Just take a look at the website, and you can always reach out to me for more. But yeah, let's do more Q&A, Vincent.
Yeah, okay, so we're starting off from Lawrence's question. So, what would you say are the biggest challenges with using the engine that developers frequently bring up and you are currently working to bring to attention?
Let me just scroll up so I can also see that visually.
That one has a little thumbs up on it.
Got it. Okay, so on a lot of the times, the issues that people have for me are that the documentation for what I'm trying to share with them isn't really polished yet, because the things that I'm working on are beta features actually. And so what I will then do is have to go internally and say, hey, like, these use cases aren't really clear. And then I update the documentation, or I create a feature that they're looking for. And then I do like a talk with that developer, and I show them, here, this is the feedback and this is how it's supposed to be done. Frequently bringing up our memory optimization. 90% of the studios that I interact with, they don't profile their project correctly. So they're not even sure what is taking up the most memory or what is taking up the most cycles on the processors. So I would say, as a student, learning about the Unity profiler, which comes with Unity, and being able to understand like what scripts are taking up, too much time on the processors, what shaders are taking up too much time on the GPU, those are invaluable to you becoming a valuable asset to a company, right? Understanding how to optimize is such a huge, valuable tool that people underrate a lot. That would be my answer for that question.
Hmm. Okay. Next question. Yash says, think you get the idea, do the same thing with Autodesk and stuff. I think that was talking about when you were discussing about the CAD applications and stuff. The next question comes from Yanda. Why is Unity physics so weird? How come PlayScene can run differently than .exe if it's the same project?
That's an excellent question. I think I also encountered that in my time as an undergrad. I would say it's because the final kind of calculations that happen in a build are different from the simulated ones that are in play mode. Because if you think about it, play mode is like a very quick, you know, version of what the physics should be. But that can change, especially in build where you have more game objects or the collision boundaries are different in your build than your play mode. So I would say if you're worried about like physics collisions, that you demo it first in play mode, but then always test as a build, which is just a good rule of thumb anyway. Like not everything that you're going to see in a demo mode is going to work in the final build.
Okay. So the next question from CT Hammer or Kenny. Interesting thing that you pointed out about neural networks for that virtual assistant. It reminds me of Gatebox. I wonder if your role in VR does something with neural networking as well.
So in the roles that I was working at towards the end before I joined Unity, there were some mentions of neural nets working with VR to, simulate like other people in a virtual environment. So it is definitely a very interesting topic, but I personally didn't have that crossover. I was just working on it from purely Unity, or when I was a VR developer, XR developer, purely the like user experience, the programming, the scripting, like creating puzzles for that game. So there was no crossover in that aspect, but I definitely can see where that can happen.
Okay. Comments about our game industry being a very small industry and about being teamwork in case if there's a toxic environment. Yaniv has a multi-part question. You said you would
Mhm.
refer us to our job for jobs potentially. A. What are the qualifications of this job? What is listed on job sites for Unity enthusiasts? B. Can you reach out to the executives of our server about this offer? Yaniv's kind of like self-promoting, like he actually would want to take you up on this offer and make a post about it in networking jobs if you are okay with it.
Yeah, of course. So, obviously, I'll take a look at like your portfolio. Like, I'll understand like the job interest and why you're applying to it before I refer you, and that's why I asked you to reach out personally. But I would love to, help you all get a foot into the industry because I was also only able to, work at Unity because people that I had worked with before gave me positive referrals. Like Unity called my previous workspace and talked to two of my other developers, and because I had made efforts to, be a good person, they gave me positive recommendations. Because if you don't build a good bond, if you don't help other people, eventually that like karma will come back is what I have to say about that. But yeah, for sure. Like I would
So
love
just
to
to be
help.
explicit here, Russell,
Mhm.
do I have your permission to make a post in the server, and like we can talk about what's like what the post will be after, but do I have your permission to like mention you and make a post about this in the server
Yeah.
explicitly? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, Ashley is also promoting Activision Raven Software for hiring as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Kenny is also wondering if Treyarch is hiring, and Activision's hiring across all teams. Working at a studio is basically a big group project with so many teams and people. Kenny was asking, so we can so like we were talking before about the Unity internship, we can apply for next summer this year.
Yes. Also, if you're recently graduating, you can also just apply for the full-time roles. Just look for like the introduction roles.
Hmm. Okay.
So the non-senior ones, and then just apply for those.
Hmm. Okay, so now that we're down to we've reached the end of the question list, I will open up the floor for 10 to 15 minutes of shotgun Q&A. So guys, feel free to turn off your mics and one at a time, ask whatever is on your mind, like right now, to Russell.
Hey, Russell.
If
This is.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. You go
go
ahead, Dan.
ahead, Sam. No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask if Russell could take a sec, and talk about how the interview and application process went at Unity. Because it sounds like you were headhunted for Unity.
Yeah.
I wonder how that compared to the stuff you're doing with the internships and the industry experience beforehand.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I had been working as a VR dev after Flowweaver had been released, right, on a different project. And during that time, actually, I was headhunted by two companies. Facebook, now known as Meta, and Unity had reached out. And it was very interesting because the hiring process was different a little bit for both. Unity had a lot of interviews. I had one phone call with the HR person that recruited me. Then I had another phone call with the HR person to set up the meeting with my now manager. So my first meeting with my manager, so this is interview number 3 technically, um, was to have him explain the role to me from his perspective because he's going to be the person responsible for my job, and then having him like understand my experience, where I come from, like my background, and why I would be interested in doing that job. And then after that, there is a technical test. So after that interview with my manager, he gave me the obviously, if the next step you progress is that the technical test happens. And so I had to create a presentation about a topic that he provided, and including like the Unity like project. So I would be demoing to him, including the slideshow as well. So it would be basically like a kind of like mini version of my eventual job scope. And that's the fourth interview. And then there is a culture fit interview. So that fifth interview would be um, other developer advocates talking to me and finding out if I fit into the culture of Unity or the culture of that team.
How
And
much
then
time were you given to do that, like the project?
the project I was given 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Actually, during that time was also when Facebook reached out to me. So I was also doing the interview process and technical test for Facebook. So, and then after that, I was faced with the decision between the two companies.
Okay.
And they both offered you?
They both wanted to hire me. At the time, I think Facebook was a contract and Unity was full time, and that was part of my deliberation.
Okay. Okay, so before we move on to Tam, I'm gonna try to make this a little bit more organized. So if you do have a question, please put in a queue off in Q&A. Go from a list of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to like queue up for a question. So okay, so and also it's like if you're done talking, please mute yourself. But yeah, Tam, your question.
Yeah, so you mentioned to reach out to you with a portfolio and you would see where we would fit. Is that for Unity or is that for all your connections? And how do you want us to reach out to you?
So for Unity, I would say first go through the careers page that I'm like on here and filter by where you would actually want to work. Like Montreal is 153 position. So I would find the role that you're looking for and then like send me the role in your portfolio. And then I'll take a
Okay.
look and understand. Like we have literally so many engineer roles open, like front end, back end, web, SDK.
I mean, you
Like
know that
100.
we're all game developers. Where do you think we fit?
Well, we also hire just like Unity developers in general. And just because you're technically a game developer doesn't mean that you can't learn about, like SDKs or like OpenXR. Let me see the non-senior role.
There's also like different types of game developers. Like there's UI, there's
Exactly, yeah. Like we hire for, user research, user interface. We hire for full stack. Like don't limit yourself just because you think you're like a game developer and you don't do other kinds of programming, right? Like
Well, I have done full stack front end SDK. I've done pretty much everything across the board, but I'm just saying, like, as a game dev, I want to stick to things that are because that's the why I went for game dev is because I do prefer like the whole game mechanics, physics sort of aspect of it, and that's why I was
oh,
wondering,
yeah.
what's your
So
suggestion? Where should I go?
absolutely. I I would suggest getting experience in the industry. Like if I came out of university and I didn't have like live experience from actual game development companies, I don't think I would have been headhunted or reached out to. So it really depends on what you want. Like if you want to be a game developer, look for internships at, small indie companies, get experience, doing it before you can say that you've gotten experience, you need to go and do it. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be like you come out and then you get to work at Activision or Ubisoft. Like you need to have the time to gain experience. Unless they're hiring for like junior roles. And even then, it's literally you versus all your other peers, right? So it's not going to be like a quick journey, but I loved what I did. And I think, coming from your passion, I think you will too.
Okay. So you were saying that you'd find a fit for us. Did you mean that as in like you have connections in the industry with game devs that you could refer us to?
Yeah, so if you have a company that you think has a role that fits you, I've probably talked to those people already. Like, the various mobile game companies in Toronto, even like people at Ubisoft. So I would suggest finding the role that you think helps you or that you're interested in, and then let me see what I can do on my end. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's cool. So how do you want us to reach out once we do figure something out?
Yeah, you can just DM me on Discord. Or yeah,
All right,
Discord works.
cool.
I guess adding on to that, like if you decided not to go on to like a bigger company like Ubisoft or Activision because of their company culture, I guess you could just stay at those specific set indie studios because some people like where they are and just stay where they are because of the corporate culture there, so.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about Unity is that it obviously is a, like enterprise level company, but a lot of the things that they do are what you would expect from like that kind of indie vibe. So I understand the wanting to avoid corporate culture, and a lot of companies are not like Unity. And so I would say that if you have interest in a small indie company, like I did, and I applied, just pursue it, right? Like eventually, if you want to, you will end up at the AAA. It's just how you want to get there and whether you actually want to be there or not. Like that's my advice on that. Take the jobs that are offered to you and don't just wait for quote unquote the perfect one. Get experience under your belt. That's the fastest way you'll get to the role that you dreamed of.
You can make any job perfect from it's up to you at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything up in their mind? If not, then I can stop the recording here because Russell, you don't have to go anywhere, right? Because I definitely want to like this last, like the last part of the session here to be like have an open floor where everybody who has Unity projects to show see like if you're interested in checking out what the students here have made.
Sure, I'm just gonna get some water and maybe come back at like 7:15.
Yeah, yeah, we'll take a little bit of a break. I think I need to fill up on water as well. Guys, we'll take like a 5 minute intercession. If you guys have any like Unity projects that you do want to show off that you've made at the side or not, yes, feel free to come.
Yeah, sorry. I do. I just gotta pull it up. Is it okay if I go first though?
Yeah, we should do a queue. We should have like a queue up in here. So it's like how I was just trying to like ask for like a queue earlier. Go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Q&A section here. So we'll take a few minutes break and then we will come back. But I will stop the recording here because the actual like speaker session portion of with Russell is done. So we'll come back in a few. Just take some time to like get whatever projects you want to show off ready, and we'll reconvene here at 7:15. But once again, Russell, thank you for your time. Teaching us about your whole game dev journey, and basically how we can keep in contact with you. So yeah, a couple minutes. We'll be back at around 7:15. Russell, holler when you're back, and yeah, we'll be back. But yeah, for those of you watching the video, we're gonna wrap up here. So yeah, thank you if you've stuck around for the video. And Russell is free for contact, and as he just mentioned, for Discord. You feel free to DM him. But yes, thank you. Hope you guys have a good day.